Congressional Budget Office cuts. The third threat, PACT Act cuts. The fourth threat, how DOJ has stolen lots of VA data and what they're going to do with it. The fifth threat, and how VBA has a serious racism and systemic problem, denying Black and other minority claims at higher rates than those for whites. And then I'm going to talk about criminal claim charts, and then wrap up about what we can do for veterans to hopefully save the New Deal and save VA. Okay, next slide, please. All right, just to make sure we're all okay on the same sheet of music, the Veterans Benefits Administration runs all the non-medical VA programs except the cemeteries. So here's some quick stats on VA, how many living veterans there are, and of those 18 million living veterans, about 1/3, more than 6 million, are receiving VA disability compensation payments for service-related medical conditions. And there's some other stats about what VA does. Okay, next slide. Threat number 1. This is the big one, the existential threat. And what I've done here is put up some headlines just so we understand the level of chaos created by President Trump and by the new VA Secretary Doug Collins, who is a far-right Republican extremist. He believes in theocracy, and he is viciously opposed to equal rights for women, Blacks, and LGBTQ. So let's just start off at the top. Right when Trump came in, they fired 1,000 VA, then they fired 1,400 more. Then the next month, they said they would fire 83,000 more. And by May, 4 months later, VA morale was tanking. Not to be outdone, then Trump pushed another 30,000 staff out in July. Then a whistleblower came out and said, all those savings and cut contracts at VA, well, it cost government and taxpayers more money to shut off those contracts than were actually saved by shutting off those contracts. In other words, it was all a big lie. Again, earlier this month, VA confirmed that it has forced out 7,500 employees, early retirements, stress on the job, making them report into work when they were working from home, and other dubious anti-worker tactics. And the next thing that's happening, this is just a couple of days ago, VA said that VA would reclassify 24,000 staff. In other words, lowering their pay grade in most cases, for example, from a GS-14 to a GS-13, or another employee from a GS-7 to a GS-6, just doing it. No plan, nothing in writing. They're just going to do it in the hopes that MAGA, Trump, DOJ, Collins, that they push out more VA employees. And remember, about 1/3 of VA employees are veterans. Now, here's the big question about all these folks that VA and Trump are firing and pushing out the door, who are dedicated, wonderful VA staff. We don't know how many are from VBA because VA, the secretary, and his staff are refusing to answer questions from Congress, refusing to answer questions from veterans groups, and refusing to respond to Freedom of Information Act requests or questions from reporters. So it's like talking to a blank wall. All right, let's move on to threat number 2. CBO stands for the Congressional Budget Office. The Republicans asked CBO what can be done to slash veteran disability benefits. Well, the first one's called means testing. If a veteran earns any money, let's say $50,000 a year, then VA will cut off the benefits. Age testing. If a veteran is older than the retirement age of, say, 65, unless, of course, the retirement age is raised, then VA will cut off benefits. Percentage testing. If a veteran is rated less than 30%, well, VA will just say, we're not going to pay you, veteran. It's not worth the bureaucracy to send you a check every month. And then finally, number 4, tax benefits. One of the Republican proposals is to have VA benefits become taxable. Right now, they're not. Okay, now let's slash to the next threat, And I know this is very distressing news. War is very expensive, and what I really want to let everyone know is the Republicans and Trump simply don't want to pay for it. They know the veterans are suffering. We know our conditions are related to our service in the war. The Republicans just don't want to pay. And that's just absolutely tragic. Okay, what's the PACT Act? That's the bill that extended benefits for Gulf War illness, burn pits, Agent Orange, radiation, and a lot more. There's been one vote so far in Congress in 2025, and all 217 Republicans voted to take away almost $23 billion in PACT Act funding. Absolutely unconscionable. And there's the roll call vote if anybody wants to see it. Okay, threat number 4. We all know Musk. I think he might be in our rear view mirror, but his group of 20-somethings who sit in the basement and are incels and far right-wing people, they stole VA data. They stole VA health data, benefits data, and personnel data. So what are the Doge and Musk people doing with this? Well, they're looking for ways to fire staff and to cut benefits. And on point number 2 down there, you'll see one VA-based Doge employee said it was all smoke and mirrors. Nobody was actually doing anything to save money. All of this, claim by Trump and Collins of fraud, waste, and abuse, it's all nonsense. There's no there. This PR lie of fraud, waste, and abuse is just their expense to hack away with a meat cleaver on VA so that the rich and the Republicans can pay for tax cuts for the rich. All right, now threat number 5. We're running through these really fast, and they're pretty serious. The VBA denies black veteran claims at a much higher rate than white veteran disability claims. And there's the report number if anybody wants to look it up. Well, Trump in January signed this anti-DEI executive order. From there, Trump and Collins closed VBA's Office of Equity and Assurance that was looking into why black claims were denied at a much higher rate. Well, we'll never know, because Trump and Collins, frankly, let's be clear here, are bigots. They do not want to have benefits for veterans, and they absolutely, certainly don't want any benefits for our Black and minority and LGBT veterans. So again, in July of 2025, the last bullet there, the Guardian newspaper is describing how the Department of Veterans Affairs is roiled because of all the horrendous and bigoted policies that are being adopted by Trump and Collins at VA. All right, the next one is criminal claim sharks. Threat number 6. Well, let's be clear, everyone. If a person assists a veteran with filing a VA claim, that person has to be pre-approved by VA. And the VFW and the Legion and the DAV, the big veterans groups, they're all approved by VA. Well, there's a special group of people who are not approved by VA. And if you're not approved by VA to help a veteran with a claim, that person is committing a crime. It's a greedy betrayal of veterans to steal their benefits. Well, how big is the problem? Well, there are about 200 claim shark groups. For about 8 years, I was the subject matter expert for the law firm I worked at, as well as the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion, on researching claim sharks. What do these claim sharks do? They steal about $1 billion in VA benefits from our disabled veterans. And VA does nothing. And it gets worse. These claim sharks use the money that they stole from veterans to donate millions to Trump and Republicans so that they can legalize stealing more from veterans. Now, is there legislation to stop the claim sharks? Yes, but the Republicans have blocked it. The only folks really working hard to stop these voracious criminals, these claim sharks, are the VFW and the Democrats. All right, those are the big threats right now to VBA. What I wanted to do is carve out just a second here for Paul's pet project, and that's VA's Veterans Crisis Line. The Republicans really don't like that. because, well, it's helping veterans. So the Republicans had a hearing to attack the veteran crisis line. What I want to do is make sure everyone here at Veterans for Peace knows that the Veterans Crisis Line works. After Veterans for Common Sense sued VA in 2007, VA set up 988 and press 1. And if you look at the screen, almost 400,000 veterans have been saved by calling this number and getting help with a trained VA counselor. So right now, since 2007, 18 years, VA is averaging saving 80 veterans in crisis every day. Could you just simply imagine if there was no VA crisis line? So my ask to everybody here is please take 2 seconds and add 988, press 1 on your phone. You don't have to be the person, the veteran doesn't have to be the person that calls. You can call, a family member can call, a friend, get the 988 staff on the phone, hand the phone to the veteran, say, here, I called for you, talk to them. That's how easy and it works. So here's the wrap up, and just about right out of time here. What's happening right now is the greatest threat to the Department of Veterans Affairs since it existed in the 1980s, and before that, when it was founded as the Veterans Administration in 1930. VA is part of the New Deal, okay? The Republicans want to kill the New Deal, okay? What we need to do as veterans is know we need to follow the news carefully. And goodness gracious, share facts, but not Fox, okay? They're reporting everything bad about VA so that Trump and Collins can shut down VA. The message to veterans is very clear. If you need an appointment, call VA, go to your appointment. If you need benefits, file your claim. If a veteran is in distress, call 988, okay? What else can we veterans do? Ask reporters to cover these Trump and Republican attacks on veterans in VA. And look, we know Congress is controlled by Republicans right now, but there's a few who are wavering, and obviously all the Democrats are supporting veterans. Well, call, write Congress and demand a fully funded, fully staffed VA, not contractors. That means stopping the privatization of VA. Also, the third bullet there, demand that Congress prosecute these claim sharks stealing $1 billion a year from veterans. And then I wrap up with this really nice quote here from U.S. Labor Secretary Frances Perkins. If you ever really want to read about a hero, she's one. She was head of the Labor Department under FDR and is credited as being one of the architects of the New Deal. She said, the people are what matter to government. And the government should aim to give all the people under its jurisdiction the best possible life. And I want to let you know, this attack by Trump and MAGA, Doge and Musk, it is an existential threat to shut down the VA so that billionaires get a tax break, and there's just nothing else to add to that. So I'll wrap up with questions at the end after everyone else has spoken. So thank you very much for the opportunity to do this, and I turn this over back to the moderator. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Paul. That was very good. Threats to the VA benefit system are big, and so are the threats to the VA healthcare system. And
Your microphone's not on.
She doesn't have a microphone, she just has to speak loud.
Should be good now. Start again.
Start again? Okay, I'll say thank you to Paul again then. The threats to the VA benefit system are huge. The threats to the VA healthcare system are equally huge. And Suzanne Gordon, who's probably known to most, if not all of you, SOVA, for us, we could not work without Suzanne and the Veterans Healthcare Policy Institute. The analysis they do is clear, concise, current, and wonderful, and we need help getting it out there. And I won't talk any more about Suzanne, but let her talk to you about the threats to VA healthcare.
Hi, thank you. Can everybody see my presentation? Although I think I got it not on right. So wait, slide, okay. Sorry. Hi. I'm not very good at, at slideshows. So I gotta get Paul Sullivan to show me how to make some fancy slides. Paul is one of the steering committee members on the VHPI steering committee, and he's just got so much knowledge about VA. I'm going to focus on healthcare, and I'm going to go really quickly through it. But I think not enough veterans even, and certainly not enough Americans understand what the the VA healthcare system is and does, and that it's a universal socialized medicine healthcare system. And it's a healthcare system, not just a medical treatment system. And as someone who's written about healthcare for something like 35 years, there's a real difference between what we have in the private sector, which is an episodic, poorly run, fragmented medical treatment system, and a healthcare system, and which includes medical care, but also goes way beyond it in dealing with people's psychosocial problems, people's mental health problems, people's housing, people's legal problems, and so forth. Its incentives are completely different than the U.S. Insurance and regular healthcare system, which is driven by profit, not mission-driven or by patient care. And the Trump administration is determined to literally privatize the whole thing. I think it's very important, and people in SOBA recognize that the privatization of VA healthcare has been really a bipartisan effort. The Mission Act, which was passed in 2018, was supported by an overwhelming majority of Democrats, and that is what accelerated the outsourcing of care of veterans to private sector providers and created this parallel healthcare system called the Veterans Community Care Program. But Trump is really determined to completely privatize it. The Democrats have been very good for the past 5 months. Tragically, they were not very good during Biden's administration. And to be completely fair, I blame Dennis McDonough for a lot of what we're seeing today, because he had the opportunity to use administrative, to use the administrative state to really reverse a lot of the problems that Trump introduced, and he didn't. And he really actually pursued a lot of Trump policies. And now they are coming in with, as Paul Sullivan said, a wrecking ball to destroy it all. And really Paul is right. I mean, existential threat, what Paul means, and forgive me, Paul, for putting words in your mouth, but you can say existential and you sort of think of Jean-Paul Sartre sitting in a cafe in Paris, and smoking Gauloise and drinking absinthe, and it's all sort of existential. It's like, oh, we're going to talk about philosophy. This is excellent. We are going to shoot it at this system and at veterans. So why is this not moving? What do I have to do here to get this to move? Oh boy.
Little arrow on the bottom.
Hold on. There's escape. Okay, that doesn't work.
Try one of your cursor arrows.
What?
Try using your cursor to the left or the right.
Oh, okay, all right.
There we go.
So, the VA is a unique system. I hope you can see this, but it really deals with everything. I mean, you've got somebody doing yoga, you've got somebody with PTSD, you've got somebody, getting prosthetics. It's comprehensive health care. It's everything, forever, at least, from discharge to grave. It has all kinds of various interconnected organization, Office of Women's Health, Office of Innovation, Office of Equity. It's the only healthcare system in the country. I know Trump has made equity a dirty word, but it's the only healthcare system in the country that actually does equity as opposed to talk about equity. And what's interesting is that equity doesn't just mean equity for minorities or people of color. Equity means how come rural white Americans can't get good health care, right? That's also equity. And I think that one of the things we need to do is sort of expand the definition of equity. But Doug Collins wants to do away with all that, right? He's fired probationary employees. He's encouraged VA employees to resign and pursue. Literally, they sent out a letter saying, working in the federal government and in the VA, taking care of veterans, is not enhancing American prosperity. This is quotes. And we encourage you to pursue more productive work elsewhere. So we need to help veterans understand that, the people who are trying to, pretend that they're, on the side of veterans view caring for veterans as unproductive work that does not contribute to American prosperity. They've canceled hundreds of critical contracts, perhaps even thousands. They're now, I think, reviewing 5,000 new contracts going on to 40,000. And we're talking about contracts for, IV fluid and cleaning supplies. They canceled the contract for a group of people in Togus, Maine, at the Togus VA, that were supervising and assuring the safety of radiation, like MRI machines and the radiation that you get when you're getting radiation treatment for prostate cancer. They've just taken a sledgehammer, and then somebody pointed out, hey, this is kind of important, and then they had to back off. They fired and halted essential VA research. They halted trials that help people, develop new treatments for cancer. They were threatening a trial that was researching the use of a generic drug that would be very cheap, that would help people avoid dialysis and transplant for kidney disease. And as many people know, millions of veterans suffer from diabetes. One of the risks is to your kidneys. And there's no one but the VA that would do this kind of critical research because it's a generic drug. They would be using a very cheap generic. So there's no money in this, and nobody would do it but the VA, and they're threatening that kind of research. And for no, good reason. And this whole, I got a call from a reporter the other day who wanted to know, well, these deferred resignations, it looks like they're not letting people resign who are nurses and doctors and clinicians, but they're accepting resignations for people who are doing IT or who are doing billing or who are doing other work that they consider to not be important. You cannot run a hospital without plumbers and housekeepers disinfecting hospital rooms and exam rooms, and people who are coders and billers and clerks scheduling appointments. And they've somehow convinced the media that you could somehow just have a bunch of doctors and nurses and surgeons running around a hospital, and that's okay, and that somehow, I don't know, they're supposed to be answering the phone while they're operating on your brain. Excuse me, there's no clerk, it's okay, Paul, just wait a minute. Oh, you're unconscious, I don't have to worry about you. It's like, just goes to show how stupid these people are and how little they know about healthcare, that they don't understand that you need these people to run a healthcare system. Of course, they don't want to run the healthcare system. They want to kill the healthcare system. And I also had to remind this person that, well, you know, it's not just about the people that they're firing or trying to fire or not succeeding in firing because there's lawsuits and this and that. It's what is the message that they're sending to people who are working in VA or might want to work in VA. And the message that they're sending is, don't work here, we don't want you, you know, your job could be threatened at any moment, so don't stay, and also don't sign on, you know, to come work here to fill a position. And I have heard a lot of stories that people are not, people who are being recruited are not accepting jobs. So this is a very, you know, serious development in some lives. One of the things that I really focus on is that this privatization effort is based on a myth, on a false promise. And the false promise is that there's thousands of competent providers out there, doctors, nurses, hospitals, psychologists, OTs, PTs, etc., just thousands of them all over the place, all over the country, ready and willing to take care of VA patients. That is what they are selling veterans. You will find high-quality providers who will deliver more timely care than the VA in more conveniently located places, particularly if you live in rural and remote rural areas. You're not going to have to drive 3 hours, 2 hours to get to a doctor or a psychologist. And they're just waiting to take care of you, and they just want to take care of you, and they're able to take care of you and competent. Really? What are the facts? I just spent the last 4 months doing a study called The False Promise of VA Privatization for VHPI, in which I looked at all 50 states, the availability of primary care providers, specialist physicians, mental health professionals, and hospital care throughout the United States. And the facts, I mean, I've been fighting for years, healthcare for years. I've known that our healthcare system is broken. I had no idea, because I never did such a deep dive into every single state. And the facts are, it's a staggering picture of no care there. Veterans, if we kill the VA, veterans to whom we made a promise, no matter what we think of the war that we started and got them into, we made a promise that we take care of them. They have largely, those lucky enough to be in VA, and that's not all veterans, as Paul Sullivan helps us understand, they will be fed, they have been sheltered, the 9 million people who are now enrolled in VA, and the 6 million people who depend on it from a broken, collapsing healthcare system. And now they will be fed into a healthcare system that has the highest death rates for avoidable treatable conditions of any high-income nation in the world. A healthcare system where people see physicians less frequently, the lowest rates of practicing physicians in the industrialized world, and the fewest hospital beds per thousand, and the highest suicide rates in the industrialized world. We will be feeding veterans into a system that has primary care shortage. 83 million people, 25% of Americans, live in areas without enough healthcare providers, and 79 million, that's 23% of the US population and 30% of the adult population, live in areas with shortages of primary care providers. I mean, I don't know about the folks listening to this, but when my primary care doctor in the Bay Area in California retired at whatever age he was, because he had it, I had a terrible time finding a new primary care provider. I mean, I know doctors who are signing on to, to work in California, like at UCSF or something. They're doctors. They cannot find somebody to take care of them. The new incoming president of the AMA had trouble finding a primary care doctor. I mean, this is like serious stuff, you know, these are people who are doctors, right? If this is just one of the maps, healthcare professional shortage maps, provided by the Rural Health Information Hub that I have in my document that's going to be released in about a week. And if you look at this, this is the picture of primary care in just one state, Tennessee. And all that dark blue is severe shortages of primary care doctors or nurse practitioners or physician assistants. I mean, there is no care there. The sort of darkish blue is partial shortages, which means it's hardly any care there. And the light blue, which is a couple of counties, is there may be primary care practices if you're lucky enough that the doctor is not about to retire or isn't close to new patients, which, you know. So that's Tennessee, where Marsha Blackburn, you know, Senator Marsha Blackburn is on the VA committee and is supporting some privatizing bills and just apparently doesn't know or doesn't care about what's going on in her own state, which, by the way, ranks 10th